Welcome to my series of AI videos. Recently, we did videos on LangGraph, three videos actually, talking about the concepts. And I had been promising you some real world example, real world application. Okay, so here it is. So, all of you, while working with ChatGPT, generative AI, you must have heard about this deep research, right? Or research assistant, right? So, it's a pretty cool, interesting application of generative AI or a chatbot, and so we'll see that. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll do some sort of a research, okay, and we'll break it down like this, right? So where what we'll see is whatever topic we want to research on, we'll pick some analysis, right? We'll pick some analysis which are kind of related to that topic in different ways. Okay, then after we choose the analysis, right, we'll kind of give this prompt for interrupt before, right? So where we'll just review whatever analysis that this chatbot has come up with, and maybe we'll modify that list a little bit. Okay, uh, so once we have sort of created these analysis, we'll fork off interviews with all these analysts in parallel. Okay, now how does the interview look like? That will ask a question, right? Now, after we ask a question, I mean, obviously, it's not a live human being, right? It's not a live analyst that we are talking to, right? So, basically, the way we'll answer that question is we'll again fork off searching the web and searching the Wikipedia in parallel. Okay, and from there, we'll get the answer to the question that we asked for that from that specific analysis, right? And we'll loop through this. Okay, and then at some point we'll terminate, right? Maybe after maybe 4 or 5 questions, or maybe when the analyst kind of says enough. Right? I mean, yeah, I mean, that's kind of end of thing, right? And then in that case we'll transition to this writing of the report. Right now, the report will have a write section part. So it will have an introduction, right? It will have a report, and it will have a conclusion, and then will finalize the report. Okay, so all the cool stuff, right? Now what I'll do is I'll just kind of directly jump into running the application. Okay, so I have this research assistant, right, which I'll just start running, right? And I've just done the first iteration where I ran this assistant, right? So it came up with analysis. Okay, and then what was the question? So I'll just show that question, which is at the end, right? Or this is like a sizable code, right? It's a lot of 550 lines of Python code. Okay, we'll say real world applications of LangGraph. What else? Right? So since we are talking about LangGraph and we want to talk about real world applications, right? Which is what we'll do. Okay. So now uh, I forked off that assistant, right? So it came up with interesting uh, analysis, right? So it came with Rachel Kim, right, who's with Stanford, right? uh, Ethan Patel, right, who's with Google Research, right, uh, and MIT Computer Science, right, Sofia Rodriguez. Okay, now I mean, just as I said, I want to demonstrate sort of some uh, kind of human feedback thing, or like approval kind of thing, right? Some sort of interruption, right? So here it is, right? So I said enter approve to proceed or give additional input. Okay. Now I happen to know CEO of Snowflake, Sridhar. Right, so I said add CEO of Snowflake. Okay. Now it actually added. Now there is some hallucination. So let's delve onto it a little bit. So it said Snowflake. Now didn't pick Sridhar. It picked Alex Chen. Okay, I don't know why, right? So now, uh, interesting, right? It said responsible for designing and implementing scalable data architecture, right? I mean, it said something. Okay, so I just kind of went back to ChatGPT, right? And I said, hey, what's going on? What is this hallucination all about, right? So I'll just show. Okay, so I was not wrong, right? So I know Sridhar, so he's the CEO. Just picked at past five CEOs, right? So there are again I know few of them, Bob Muglia, right? Now, this election is not nowhere seen, right? So I said, who's Alex Chain, right? So there are some other important, interesting, it's a common name. So there are a lot of Alex chains, but I said, uh, related to Snowflake, right? So, okay, so he's actually a UX designer. Okay, so he's not kind of executive or that well known, but okay, I mean, not that off, right? It hallucinated, but what the heck? Okay, now I just want to demonstrate the kickoff of the workflow, right? So I'll just say approve, right? So now what would happen? We initiate all these interviews, right? Now all these interviews are going to happen in parallel, okay? And as I was showing, right, the workflow would be this conducting interview will ask a question, right? To answer the question, it will search the web, search the Wikipedia in parallel, and then it will answer the question, right? So I just put some logging here. So where I said it basically whenever it asks a question, I'll just print that question. So what is the question it generated? Okay, so it generated a question. I'm actually working on a piece about the intersection of LangGraph and data architecture, specifically how it's being used in large-scale enterprise environments. Okay, and I'm just printing the questions. I'm not printing the answers, right? But then these interviews are going on. Okay, so while these interviews are going on, let me just touch upon the features that we have used in this LangGraph features we have used in this application, right? So first of all, it's an agentic pattern, right? So as we saw, there are these multiple agents like create analysis, right? Conduct interviews, right? These are multiple agents there. It's an agentic pattern. Okay, search. Okay, tools, right? We have used a Tavily search and a Wikipedia, right? As we uh, saw, right? So I'll also quickly show some of the code, right? So basically, if you see, right, I'm using a Wikipedia and a Tavily, right? For searching of the web, I'm using Tavily, okay, and Wikipedia, okay. State, right? So now we use lots of interesting features for the state. So we use type take, we use pedantic, we use the messages state, right? And we are also using the reducer of the state, uh, which is namely the add operation of the list, okay. So like some of these states you can see that we are using, right? Analysis state, right? So analysis is a list, right? Now this is the operator add, right? This is the reducer, right? In the context I'm using that. In the interview state, obviously, right? Research graph state, it's more complex. In the sections is kind of, again, I'm using a reducer add, right? Because there are three different agents writing different sections, right? Introduction, uh, conclusion, and the report, right? Okay. Now a lot of prompt engineering here. Okay, that is typical of any generative AI application. Okay, human feedback and approval, right? So we just demonstrated that, right? So I just showed you that sort of a human feedback, right? So where it prompted me for if I want to change the analysis, right? And that code is here, right? So now since it's kind of on the command line, I'm using this input function as a user input. Okay, if you're running through Studio, right, or a cloud, LangGraph cloud, right, you can just use the interrupt before attribute for that node. Okay, okay, so that was the human feedback, right? So parallelization, right? So web and Wikipedia search in parallel, right? So let me just show you that, right? Now, uh, basically, if you see, right, this Wikipedia and uh, web, right, they are in parallel, right? So if you see my graph, right, again in a lot of prompt engineering, right? So uh, so these are nodes, right? So if you can see after the ask question, search web and search Wikipedia, right? They are in parallel, as you know, okay. And that you can also see from the graph, right? So after asking the question, search web and search Wikipedia are in parallel. So I mean, as you know, then we have to use the reducer, right? State reducer. So we have used that there, okay. So that is the parallelization, right? Now subgraph, right? Now it's very interesting here. So uh, this interview builder, right? So basically, this is interview is conducting interview is one workflow, right? Now this is actually a subgraph of the whole workflow, right? After the creating the analysis, right? So let me quickly show you that, right? So if you see my final graph, right, which I'm going to invoke or execute, right, actually has a node conduct interview, right, which is actually a subgraph, right? And this is how I picked it out. Real world applications of LangGraph, right? And I said three analysts, right? But then I added the fourth one, okay? Uh, and this analysis interviews follows the map reduce, right? Which is one of the most interesting feature that we saw of LangGraph. Now, how does it do it? It basically use the same pattern, add conditional ages, right? It does initiate all interviews, right? And it either goes to create analysis or conduct interviews, right? As we saw here, right? Uh, so this one either uh, sort of readjusts or sort of reforms the analysis list, or it goes to conducting interviews, right? Now, if we go here, what do we know, right? It basically uh, is going to use the send pattern, right? So it if it is approved, right, or when it is not approved, until it is approved, we'll kind of keep refining our analysis list, right? Once it is approved, right, we'll initiate all interviews. Now this does a send, right, and which we saw before, right, and it is for analyst in analysts, right? So it will iterate over every analyst in the analysts list, right? And will kick off interviews for all the analysts. Okay, so all this code is on my GitHub, right? So if you go over to my multi-agents repository under LangGraph, this research assistance is there. You can try it out, right? And as you can see, right, I mean, it's still going on. It's kind of, it's a pretty lengthy sort of a workflow, right? You can try it yourself. Feel free to modify, right? Uh, and good luck. I hope you enjoyed this application of LangGraph, okay, which is kind of using a lot of features that we learned from LangGraph, and we're wondering how they are useful in the real world business application. Okay, so if you like the video, click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and see you in the